Hello, I'm Curtis A. Routley, and I'd like to thank you for joining me in the Running Prophecy channel to take part in the teachings that I'm posting from my book, Running Prophecy, so that you can have an opportunity to learn some of the things that are taking place in the world today and how soon that they are coming. This is lesson number 11, Israel's Great Tribulation. Now, it may seem that all I've been doing is doom and gloom in the last few lessons, and this will be the last one that is like that. After this lesson, things lighten up, brighten up, and the rejoicing comes. And we will see the events that take place after we finish discussing the things that pertain to Israel's Great Tribulation. In the first lesson, I taught you that the peace treaty over Ezekiel's Israel was going to begin Daniel's 70th week, and that the 70th week was sitting on day 1290. Now in Revelation chapter 11, in verses 3 and verse 9, we learned that the tribulation period was going to be 1,260 days long, and Israel's Great Tribulation would be 3.5 days long. These are both time periods on the same calendar. I taught you in lesson 2 that the 1,260 days ran from 70 AD until 1967, when the Jews got Jerusalem back in a 6-day war, as God acted on behalf of His Word. Now, day 1290 was then 30 days after day 1260. And with a 1.5 year to a day ratio, that meant 30 days was equal to 45 years, and we added in the God factor of 7 years and brought it to 52 years. And 1967 and 52 is the year 2019, plus or minus a year and a half. This is when the atomic bombs go off in the Middle East. In Zechariah, the prophet said that I would destroy 3 shepherds in 1 month. It only takes 30 days for the Antichrist to overrun Israel, Egypt, and the Sudan, in Zechariah 11, verse 8. In Zechariah 13, verse 8, we learn that 2/3 the population of the land of Israel is going to die. Now, in 2014, Israel reached a population of 8.25 million people. So by 2019, it's reasonable to assume that they would have 9 million people in that vicinity. 2/3 of 9 million means 6 million people are about to die in the land of Israel. That's another Holocaust in the land of Israel. Zechariah 14, verse 2 says 1/2 the population of Jerusalem is going to perish as well. That's a lot of people dying in the land of Israel. It doesn't bode well. In Jeremiah, chapter 1, verses 13 through 16, we read, "And the word of the Lord came to me a second time, saying, What do you see? And I said, I see a boiling pot facing away from the north. Then the Lord said to me, Out of the north the evil will break forth on all the inhabitants of the land. For behold, I am calling all the families of the kingdoms of the north, declares the Lord, and they will come. And they will each set one his throne at the entrance of the gates of Jerusalem, against all its walls round about, and against all the cities of Judah. And I will pronounce my judgments on them concerning all their wickedness, whereby they have forsaken me, and have offered sacrifices to other gods, and worshipped the works of their own hands." It's time to get earnest with praying for the peace of Jerusalem. It's more important now than it's ever been. This boiling pot that Jeremiah is looking at resulted in what Ezekiel chapter 1 reported. And out of this boiling pot came forth the living beings upon the land of Israel. I taught you in the lesson on the locusts and the living beings that this was the modern army. the tanks, the personnel carriers, the supply trucks, the fighter aircraft, the helicopters, and the limited tactical nuclear weapons that were going to bring the destruction into the land of Israel. And so all these families of the north, all these armies are going to marshal, and the tank corps that they bring is going to do extreme damage to the city of Jerusalem. Because the first bombs, if you will recall, the top of Mount Carmel was bare, top of Mount Bashan was bare, and the plain of Sharon became a desert place. Now Mount Carmel is the Haifa vicinity, Israel's northern Air Force base. The plain of Sharon is where Israel's army will be marshaling to fight the Antichrist, but they don't realize the types of weapons that he is using until it's absolutely too late for them. When they see the first flash of light, the second flash of light is immediately in their vicinity, and they're gone. In Deuteronomy 28, verse 24, the Lord told the people of Israel that he would rain their land upon their head like powder and dust until they were consumed. Now, the one thing that the bomb does is it takes the ground, the immediate decrease of pressure causes the land to rise up from 12 to 20 feet. Then the land is lifted up as powder and dust, and it falls and subsides again. The powder and dust that is lifted up becomes extremely radioactive, and it begins to fall out of the cloud. Now, radioactive fallout chemically bonds with hair. You cannot wash it out of your hair. When you're exposed to the radioactive fallout, you have to shave off all your bodily hair. And that's what Jeremiah 48:37 says, where you read that, "For every head is bald and every beard is cut short. There are gashes on all the hands and sackcloth on the loins." Every head is bald. Every beard is cut short. All the hands are scarred and marked. And sackcloth is worn by everybody. I mean, what happens with this attack is absolutely horrific to the land of Israel. And we read in Joel what happens in Joel chapters 1 and 2. Joel chapters 1 and 2 is the Antichrist attacking with his army and with his tanks. And chapter 2 clearly describes the effect of the tank corps coming into the land of Israel around the city of Jerusalem. Starting with Joel chapter 1. The word of the Lord that came to Joel, the son of Pethuel. Hear this, O elders, and listen, all inhabitants of the land. Has anything like this happened in your days or in your father's days? Tell your sons about it. And let your sons tell their sons and their sons to the next generation. What the gnawing locust has left, the swarming locust has eaten. What the swarming locust has left, the creeping locust has eaten. What the creeping locust has left, the stripping locust has eaten. Awake, drunkards, and weep and wail, all you wine drinkers, on account of the sweet wine that is cut off from your mouth. For a nation has invaded my land, mighty and without number. Its teeth are the teeth of a lion, it has the fangs of a lioness. It has made my vine a waste and my fig tree splinters. It has stripped them bare and cast them away. Their branches have become white. Now, artillery shells from tanks will definitely splinter a tree, but for the branches to become white, it has to take the moment of the ignition of that device and the 10 million degree temperature being reached, and all the moisture in the branches getting immediately superheated and just explosively blown out of the branch, separating the bark from the tree and blowing the bark away from the tree and leaving the branches white. That's a function of the bomb. Wail like a virgin girded with sackcloth for the bridegroom of her youth. The grain offering and the libation are cut off from the house of the Lord. The priests mourn, the ministers of the Lord. The field is ruined, the land mourns. For the grain is ruined, the new wine dries up, fresh oil fails. Be ashamed, O farmers, wail, O vine dressers, for the wheat and the barley, because the harvest of the field is destroyed, the vines dried up. The fig tree fails, the pomegranate, the palm also, and the apple tree, and all the trees of the field dry up. Indeed, rejoicing dries up from the sons of men. Gird yourself with sackcloth and lament, O priest. Wail, O ministers of the altar. Come, spend the night in sackcloth, O ministers of my God, for the grain offering and the libation are withheld from the house of your God. Consecrate a fast, proclaim a solemn assembly, gather the elders and all the inhabitants of the land to the house of the Lord your God. Consecrate a fast, proclaim a solemn assembly, gather the elders and all the inhabitants of the land to the house of the Lord your God, and cry out to the Lord, alas, for the day of the Lord is near, and it will come as destruction from the Almighty. Has not food been cut off from before our eyes, gladness and joy from the house of our God? The seed shrivel under their clods. The storehouses are desolate, the barns are torn down, for the grain is dried up. Now the seeds shriveling under the ground is the function of the radiation of the bomb. When it goes into the soil, 3 feet of soil, it'll kill everything that's a seed that's in the soil, because again it will vaporize the moisture in the seed, completely eliminating and killing all possibility of the seed to germinate and reproduce. How the beasts groan, for the herds of cattle wander aimlessly, because there is no pasture for them. Even the flocks of sheep suffer. To thee, O Lord, do I cry. For fire has devoured the pastures of the wilderness, and the flame has burned up all the trees of the field. Even the beasts of the field pant for you, for the water brooks are dried up, and fire has devoured the pastures of the wilderness. A fire consumes before them, and behind them a flame burns. The land is like the Garden of Eden before them, but a desolate wilderness behind them, and nothing at all escapes them. Their appearance is like the appearance of horses, and like war horses so they run. With the noise as of chariots they leap on the tops of the mountains, like the crackling of flame of fire consuming the stubble, like a mighty people arranged for battle. Before them the peoples are in anguish, all faces turn pale, they run like mighty men. And this is the tank corps of this army. They climb the wall like soldiers. They each march in line, nor do they deviate from their paths. They do not crowd one another. They march every one in his path. When they burst through the defenses, they do not break ranks. They rush on the city. They run on the wall. They climb into the houses. They enter through the windows like a thief. Before them the earth quakes, the heavens tremble. The sun and the moon grow dark, and the stars lose their brightness, and the Lord utters his voice before his army. Surely his camp is very great, for strong is he who carries out the word. The day of the Lord is indeed great and very awesome, and who can endure it? And so the land of Israel becomes extremely polluted, extremely separated. The families are separated, and everyone is living apart. In Zechariah chapter 12, verses 10 through 14, or 11 through 14. In that day there will be a great mourning in Jerusalem, like the mourning of Hadradrimmon in the plain of Megiddo. And the land will mourn, every family by itself, the family of the house of David by itself, and their wives by themselves, and the family of the house of Nathan by itself, and their wives by themselves, the family of the house of Levi by itself, and their wives by themselves, the family of the Shimeites by itself, and their wives by themselves. All the families that remain, every family by itself, and their wives by themselves. And so the Antichrist completely separates entire families. All the men are living with the men, all the women are living with the women, and the only pregnancies that happen are because of the women that are being raped by the soldiers of the Antichrist army. And Jesus said about this, woe to those in Matthew 24, verses 18 through 22, 19 through 22, woe to those who are with child in that day. and to those who nurse babes in those days. But pray that your flight may not be in the winter or on a Sabbath, for then there will be a great tribulation such as not occurred since the beginning of the world until now, nor ever shall. And unless those days had been cut short, no flesh would have been saved, but for the sake of the elect, those days shall be cut short. And the people of the nations ask that question, where is their God? And the nations of the earth rejoice over the fact that Israel has been destroyed, and the days of the Antichrist are numbered, and they are very short indeed. And the return of the Lord is very close at hand. God bless you.